Hello friends, this is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we talk about manipulation and disinformation of the Russian media. Buffer zone as a mirage. Russian talk shows are once again discussing European plans to create a 40-kilometer buffer zone between Russia and Ukraine. In the program of August 29th, Skabeeva presents this as a de facto recognition of Kyiv's defeat by the West. They say that they will have to cede territory and seek a compromise. However, behind the big words there is one detail. Not a single EU country has expressed its readiness to send tens of thousands of troops to this zone. For Moscow, this is a convenient plot. Europe is supposedly tired and Ukraine is doomed. In fact, buffer zones are discussed only in analytical publications and do not have the status of an official plan. Brussels is not ready to openly trade Ukrainian territory, and any hints about the division of Germany are just an attempt by Russian commentators to draw a favourable historical parallel. Trump between the carrot and stick. The key figure in these discussions is Donald Trump. Russian broadcasts portray him as irritated by Kyiv and Europe, inclined to make a deal with Moscow and allegedly ready to sacrifice part of Ukraine for the sake of peace. Trump's press secretary admits that the White House is unhappy with the strikes on Kyiv, but sees them as the logic of war. This creates the image of a leader who understands the Kremlin's arguments and is ready to speak its language. However, Western media present a different picture. Bloomberg talks about the failure of the negotiations in Alaska and that Putin managed to buy time without retreating a single step. The Atlantic emphasizes that Trump is irritated by the demands of Kyiv and Brussels, but he does not have a clear strategy for pressuring Moscow. The US president is torn between the stick, new tariffs and sanctions, and the carrot, a temporary ceasefire, without offering either a real plan or specific commitments. Europe and the last straw. For European leaders, the strikes on Kyiv have become another reminder. Russia is not going to change its behavior. That is why Brussels is discussing a new package of sanctions and freezing Russian assets. But Russian TV presents this as the impotence of Europe, which is looking for the last straw and does not dare to act independently. At the same time, there is also outright mockery on the air. The idea of patrolling the zone by neutral countries, perhaps even African ones, is used as a mockery of European attempts to find a third way. European leaders are united in condemning Russia's strikes on targets in the Ukrainian capital. Guardia writes on the front page that the British Council building was damaged in the attack on military targets. Zelensky calls the attack a blow to Europe. The building next door is an assembly plant for attack drones. Kyiv, in its usual manner, has placed a military facility next to civilian infrastructure. We are outraged by the attack on Kyiv, which also damaged our EU missions. This was the most serious drone and missile attack on the capital since July. We continue to exert maximum pressure on Russia. This means further tightening our sanctions regime. We will soon present the 19th package of tough, painful sanctions. In parallel, we are working to use frozen Russian assets to contribute to the defense and reconstruction of Ukraine. And of course, we provide strong and unwavering support to Ukraine, our neighbor, partner, friend, and future member of the Union. There was a terrible attack on Kyiv. I think this is further confirmation of what we have all been saying. We cannot be naive about Russia. We cannot be naive about Vladimir Putin. It is already clear that the meeting between President Zelensky and President Putin will not take place. And this goes against what President Trump and President Putin agreed to last week when we were together in Washington. The illusion of control. The main message of Russian propaganda is to show that Europe is losing its will, and the key to peace is held only by Moscow and Washington. In this scheme, Ukraine is an obstacle, a stumbling block that must be removed from the table. For the European audience, this interpretation is valuable precisely as an illustration. The Kremlin is consistently pushing Europe out of the negotiation process, presenting it not as a subject, but as an extra. This was the program Empire of Lies with you. See you soon.